X-Pac 12360.
A new day is dawning for DX.
And now, your host, John X-Pac Waltman.
Welcome to X-Pac 12360, everyone. So excited right now because we shortened that intro up a lot. I was just telling everyone, like, you know, when you watch Netflix and they have the intro on the Netflix original series, like, you have the option of skipping the intro. And if I could have skipped this intro every time I tuned into this show, I would have done just that. And it's just, I mean, I appreciate the, you know, the work put into it. It's just so long. You know, we were talking earlier. It's like you said, watch a Game of Thrones intro. It's like as long as some like short episodes of other TV shows I've seen. It seems like. Anyway, whatever. We're having a good show today. Great show today. Not
Absolutely.
a good one. Yeah, great one. And a little bit later on, well, you know, toward the end of the show, I'm really, really honored to be having Glenn Jacobs on, my favorite tag team part. Nothing against like all my dearest friends, but you know,
AKA
there was just something really
superstar
special.
Kane.
Yeah, there was just something really special about that. The dynamic, you know, of our relationship on screen.
You guys won Best Tag Team of the Year in 1999.
More than once, I think. Maybe more than once. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, and we made some money too, but mainly it was just creatively extremely satisfying.
Yeah.
But and in a few minutes here, we're gonna be joined on the phone by somebody I'm so happy to see come back around the wrestling scene, because he helped start a lot of the stuff that's going on right now when it comes to, you know, super fan conventions and big events and WrestleCons and all this. John Arezzi was doing it before anyone. Well, actually, we'll get into it. But anyways, John Arezzi, he popularized all of this, and he, you know, he had a relationship with Vince Russo. You know, many years ago they had a radio show together.
Wrestling Spotlight Radio.
Yeah, and they. Anyways, we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Can't wait.
I just don't want to get into all the BS with John concerning Vince, and you know, I don't want to go too far down that. It's just because I don't want to get, you know, I like to keep things positive. Guys, looking to last a little longer or go a few extra rounds? Go to BlueChew.com. BlueChew.com is the first ever chewable that brings your performance in the bedroom to another level. Check this out. They've got the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so they work. Since they're chewable, they'll work faster than a pill. You can take them anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach. They do work really fast, ladies, just to let you know.
Noted.
Yeah. So, and,
I don't like to wait, so that's good.
Yeah, and like for everyone out there, like, you know, the holiday season, this is a perfect thing, you know, because everybody loves to have sex. Well, pretty much everyone, you know, and even like, okay, for the ladies that are out there listening, you know, like I said this before, you know, do yourself a favor and have your boyfriend, your husband, significant other, you know, go to BlueChew.com with promo code X-Pac.
Get your first order for free. You only pay $5 for shipping.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Jimbo.
Especially with the holidays coming.
Yes.
It's a great stocking stuffer.
Yeah, and the thing is you don't need to go to the doctor's office or spend time waiting in the pharmacy line, because Blue Chew ships straight to your door in discreet packaging. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first order free when you use promo code XPAC. Just pay $5 shipping. $5. It's a small price to pay for a good session of sex.
For a long night.
Yeah. and here's the thing, like I mentioned this before, but just say, like, you spending a lonely night, or, you know, you don't have anyone to share a sexual experience with, you know, just, you know, set yourself a date night and with yourself, and get you some Blue Chew, get you a little hot towel, you know, a little spank your vision. And hey, listen, I'm gonna tell you what, like, you can't really date yourself if it doesn't, you know, I mean, anyways, it's better even when you're doing it with yourself if you use Blue Chew. That's all I'm saying. So go to BlueChew.com and use promo code XPAC. And if you do that, send us your proof of purchase, and we'll send you a free picture signed. All right? All right. BlueChew.com, promo code X-Pac. Is there any couple things we want to talk about at all?
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff I want to get your thoughts on.
Yeah, I know. Real quick. Hey, I want to thank everyone that came out to the Wrestling Guy store this weekend. We had about a week and a half notice. Like, I just felt like doing something around here. You know, seeing everyone that wanted to come out and see us. And a ton of people came out to the Wrestling Guy store this Saturday, and it was great. So I want to thank everyone. It really means a lot to me. It made me feel really good. But anyways,
and they're going to feel pretty cool about having a superstar in their Christmas picks this year, right? So
I think there were some pretty cool picks. They had some professional photographer and Christmas tree. And anyways, yeah, it was fun. It was great.
That's cool.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and jump into what was a very impactful episode of Being the Elite. Leaving the Territory, episode 130, sort of answered a lot of questions for us fans. We've sort of been, we've been talking about the rumors of All Elite Wrestling coming out. You know, we still only know what we know so far. But the Bucks and Cody have officially said goodbye to Ring of Honor. So they will no longer be being there at all. They said goodbye to that on that episode. And they also showed, I guess you can say, they performed a skit on their sort of contract dealings with the WWE. And now after this episode, we know that they will not be appearing with them after they have expressed no interest in the company. It was actually a pretty interesting episode too. They had a character that was titled H, so you can figure out who that was supposed to be. They give him a letter at the beginning of the episode, and then at the end of the episode, we actually find out what was in that letter. And in the letter, it said, "Although this was a difficult decision, we watched an episode of Raw and saw what you guys did to the tag team division. I know in the business, the saying goes, never say never, but for now, we wish you the best in your future endeavors." And according to this is apparently how it really went down between them. I mean, I'm sure there's, different details and all of that stuff, but this is officially what we know.
Okay. So do we know anything about the future of Adam Page, Marty Scurll?
So Marty Scurll is still within the company, still going to be with Ring of Honor. His contract is not up until April. Yeah. Kenny doesn't have a contract with Ring of Honor, but his contract with New Japan is up in January.
Gotcha.
But and then as for dates, when it comes to Cody and the Bucks, the only date they have announced is January 4th for Wrestle Kingdom 13.
Gotcha. All right. Well,
their schedules are free.
I tell you, I can totally understand where the Bucks are coming from when it comes to looking at the product at WWE and how they treat tag teams. So you can say, okay, you can see, the deal is they present you with the opportunity, and it's what you make of it. But it's the opportunities for tag teams. A lot of times they can say, "Oh, don't worry, it's all up to you and how you make. It's what you make of it." Not always. That's bullshit. Like they can, bullshit. Sorry, I hope I don't.
I'm not sorry.
Heat or but whatever. It's when it comes in. History says that tag teams don't get used well there.
Right.
Every now and again, it's happened. But overall, as far as using them as the, like for instance, the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom. I mean, they're a main event act, like a main event act, and you rarely ever saw them in the main event on a WWE show anywhere. So it's just the way that is at WWE. It's just the way it is. So I mean, it's not, they treat the tag teams well in NXT, but. So understand where they're coming from. So good for the Bucks, good for Cody, good for wrestling.
Do you think part of it would maybe be too just being in control of their own destiny, that they want to be able to choose what they do and when and who they're in a matchup against? That whole idea has really become, Cody Rhodes has kind of made that attainable for indie stars.
I mean, the Bucks, they don't really have the experience of working in WWE to know the the positives and negatives, you know, firsthand like Cody does.
Right.
So,
that's so true.
Yeah.
Well, also one of the things that I wanted to add to this was that this is sort of like the peak of their career. This is sort of the right time for this, for them to be making sort of a big move. And not only that, the fans are really, really excited to see what they're going to be doing. I mean, they already broke barriers with All In, so I feel like now the bar is set a little higher for them.
Yeah. So
I just think WWE has shown that they use singles wrestlers as a tag team more instead of a tag team.
Yes.
With you and Kane is a perfect example. You guys were both singles wrestlers, and then you ended up winning best tag team several times because it all worked out. Same with the Bar, Cesaro and Sheamus. But an actual tag team, bringing in an actual tag team and worried like, well, one of these guys get hurt, they're both out. We can't really use them. So I think that's probably why WWE doesn't push tag team wrestling as much as, well, when we need it, we'll just fill that void kind of thing.
That's right, and they have a completely stacked roster, which is about to get, especially on Raw and SmackDown, which is about to get a little bit more crowded recently. They have confirmed that there are 6 NXT stars going up to the main roster. This includes Lars Sullivan, which we already knew and are excited for, but also Lacey Evans, the former lady of NXT, EC3, Nikki Cross, who you guys know from former Sanity member, and Heavy Machinery, that's Otis Docevic and Tucker Knight, will all be joining WWE's main roster soon.
Well, so my main, I'm not going to go through that list. I'm just going to tell you Lars Sullivan and EC3 are made for the main roster.
Absolutely.
More so than NXT, which they've been great there too, but, you know, I can just see, you know, obviously Lars, because, I mean, he's just freakish, like in so many ways, but like EC3 is your, like, I look at him and I look at like his mannerisms, I look at the, you know, his mic skills. I mean, he's tailor-made for, you know, a good push on the main roster.
Absolutely, and I think you guys will actually probably be surprised by Lacey Evans. She's a great promo herself, and Heavy Machinery may have the potential to get lost in sort of what we were just talking about now, but we will see.
Yeah. So, all right, well, hey, so I think right now, do we take a break right now, Mark, or do we just bring John in?
Let's just bring John in.
All right.
Let's do it. We're ready.
All right, so let's do it. Do you have an intro for John, or no? Or
just a very little short one.
Okay. All right.
Are we rolling? Are we ready? All right, guys. Well, joining us now, he is the founder of Pro Wrestling Spotlight Radio. You know him as the host of that show. He also pushed his newsletter back in the day, a source of info for all of us. Please welcome to the show a guy who, as you said earlier, kind of started the whole thing of WrestleCons and promotions and connecting the fans with the stars they love to see. Please welcome John Arezzi.
Yeah, make some noise for John. Yeah.
Yo. What's
John,
going on?
Hey, everybody. I just let everyone know this is the first time I've talked to John Arezzi in over 25 years, right?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a reincarnated dinosaur is what happened.
John, I was so happy when all of a sudden I seen your name pop up on my Twitter app and my timeline, and it brought back somebody. It's not, I mean, we were only around each other for that one weekend, John, but it really left a huge impact to me, and it was so important in my career, man.
You were like one of the top up-and-coming guys at the time, and I heard so much about you and all the great things that you were doing out of Minneapolis, and to have the opportunity to bring you into Weekend of Champions was a pleasure for me. And then, of course, we had the one radio visit at Scores in New York City with Alex Marvez and Missy Hyatt and Jason Hervey.
Yep.
That was kind of a crazy couple hours, and you had some tragic news during that show. And
That's right.
It was surreal. It was surreal, man.
Yeah, that was weird because I didn't put two and two together. Like, I don't know, however many years later, when I was filming like a DX video at Scores, you know, with all the ladies and everything, that was the same spot we did that in all those years ago.
Yeah, it was pre Gentlemen's Club days when I was in there with the radio show doing some remotes in there. But I mean, it's really bizarre for me to even be back in all of this because I left the business in '96 and I didn't turn back. I just left it, changed my name, and just got out. I mean, I had gotten so burnt out and so disillusioned, and I just it was just kind of a, and then slowly, I mean, a few years ago, Wade Keller asked if I had any of my old radio shows that people ask about me all the time. Everybody thought I was either dead or in witness protection.
I gotta admit, man, I thought you might be dead, John.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people thought, and so I gave him permission to put some of these shows up on his VIP site, and all of a sudden, it kind of like people were really digging the interviews I did back in the day with, like, behind the curtains with Ultimate Warrior and all the content and all those shows back in the day that no one else was really doing. So that was kind of a reemergence for me. And then I did a few podcasts. I got called by Cornette a couple times and a few others.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fun to do it, but it wasn't really until 3 weeks ago. My nephew, who's a big wrestling fan, got a passion for it. Just got out of college, 21 years old, brilliant kid, Dominic DiBiase. Yeah. No relation to Ted. He sent me this podcast that Russo did about his disagreements with the Dirt Sheet people, and they talked about origins and how he got started, and then they just said a bunch of stuff that was really historically inaccurate, and some things need to be clarified. So I reached out, and they were very gracious to bring me on his show, and we talked it out. We had a gentleman's conversation. It didn't get heated. We talked through our misunderstandings from 27 years ago when I brought him into the business, and it was therapeutic for both of us. And then I started this Twitter account at the same time, and it blew up with all this old content that I've been posting. So I'm like, this is kind of cool,
It's really cool, John, because like I was looking through your all your tweets and just some of the pictures and you're bringing like, okay, some people are going like might not really appreciate this, but there's a lady named Georgianne Mark pronounce.
Yes.
We always just called her Georgie.
Georgie. Georgianne Necropolis.
Yeah.
Who passed away in 2010, but she was like from the 60s. She ran Buddy Rogers fan club and Bruno's fan club, and she was kind of like the chatterbox of wrestling.
Well, that was her. That was the name of her. Yeah, wasn't that the name of her little newsletter, the Wrestling Chatterbox? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she was a mentor for all of us trying to get into the business, and because I ran Freddie Blassie's fan club back in 1972.
Yeah.
And she helped me back in the day, all the way back then, like get exposure and give me some publicity, and she was always there for everybody.
And John,
that's the type of stuff that I'm finding in my archives right now.
John, and there's a picture of Buddy Rogers and Bruno together that I think she was responsible for making happen, right?
Yes, exactly. They, had legitimate heat with each other all throughout the days, from '63 on to present day. Back in the day at '91, and then when I booked Rogers and Bruno at my convention, Georgie was able to get them to pose for a picture together.
Right.
And that was kind of like, holy smokes. I mean, look, they're standing next to each other. And then she was able to get a picture of herself with both of them. And ironically, I mean, that was a photo that was buried with her. She, they put that in her casket.
Wow. Yeah, what a wonderful
I mean, it was
lady,
so impactful. But she ran both of their fan clubs back in the early 60s.
Hey, so John, when you... Were you like, okay, we talk about, and I mentioned that, like, you're pretty much, like, in my opinion, the person that, like, all this WrestleCon, all these things, like, started with you, but there was actually, like, a WFIA. Were you a member of that ever?
I was. I was a member of the WFIA in the early 70s, but basically what those conventions were, there weren't like these autograph opportunities. It was really an organization of fans to get together, and they had an awards ceremony that would give out, the best fan club of the year, the best newsletter, and the best wrestler and manager of the year. So it was really an organization that was very great for those who were inside the business.
Right.
It wasn't, and for the fans and for the hardcore fans, but it wasn't. It was more of a, like, there were meetings and panels, and there were no tables for merchandise. I mean, all the tables that were set up for the WFIA were like me when I had my Fred Blassie fan club.
Right.
I had a display. It was a display about the fan club, and that's basically what those displays were. But it wasn't until really the Weekend of Champions that, and I always wanted to bring the fans and the wrestlers together. I thought it was a time that the timing was right, and that there were so many wrestlers and performers that never had the opportunity to meet the fans before. So that's why I started the Weekend of Champions, to get the fans and the wrestlers together and get collectors together in one environment to, just have a really good 3-day weekend of just nothing but wrestling.
And so, John, like the thing is when you started doing that was right around the time that like the curtain fell as far as the death of kayfabe or however you want to put it, right? So that was to me the difference.
He didn't get Flair in '91 because he never had that experience before,
right?
And he actually was in the ring when we did the auction, and he was like, I was very uneasy about this, but now that I've seen what John did, and this is a lot of fun. I'm actually enjoying myself, and that was kind of like tearing the curtain down, throwing kayfabe out the window, and that's when it really started. Wrestlers interacting with fans and talking, hanging out at the bar with Terry Funk and Buddy Rogers and Eric. I mean, it was just an amazing opportunity, and one of my proudest moments was bringing the original Sheik in with Sabu in '93 for the one and only autograph appearance that he ever did.
Wow.
And that was, to me, to this day, because he stayed in character. And even my interaction with him with Kevin Sullivan, and I was like, it was kind of suspension of disbelief for me, giving Kevin Sullivan the payday to hand over to the Sheik, and he just kind of winked at me, and I just wanted him to stay in character. I didn't even want to talk to the dude because I didn't want that illusion. Because I was afraid of him when I was a kid. I was like, that's the guy that throws fire,
Sometimes we want to hold on to these images that we have. Yes. I wish that more people would think about things that way and not ruin everything for themselves.
Yeah, I know. And I see the way it's gone and the politics and, everyone's questioning booking. I'm back in this for one reason and one reason only, to share nostalgia with the fans. I mean, so many good memories. And Sean, in my archives, I mean, I got movies. I shot film at Madison Square Garden when I was 12. I got Andre the Giant's first match at the Garden, Mil Mascaras' debut.
Wow,
I have Bruno, Pedro, Chief J. Strongbow, Andre, the Funks. I shot Madison Square Garden ringside from 72 to 74, and then I became a ringside photographer for the magazines.
Wow.
But I have 10,000 photographs. I got 8mm films. I got all the shows I produced when I was the IWAS promoter, and I ran that organization. So the content that I have is, I could do this shit for years.
Yeah.
I could be out there for years every day posting stuff.
Yeah, you could.
But I want to find a way to bring it to the fans in a way. And I'm contemplating what I'm going to do in 2019, and I haven't made that decision yet. I see there's a market for it.
Yes.
And I see there's an appetite for the nostalgia, and I'm like, how do I go about entering back into this in a very cool way?
Without having to step in all the mud, John. Without having to step in all the mud everyone else is stepping in,
I want to avoid that mud because it turns into quicksand.
Yeah, man, I hear you. I was just telling the team here when before we came on air, there was wondering what you might want to talk about, and I was like, look, John doesn't want to weigh in, and I kind of read to them the DM. It was basically the same thing you just said. Look, I don't want to get into booking decisions now and who's being used right or wrong. Like, let's just focus on the nostalgia and the good memories, and I love that, John. I love that.
Yeah, and you know what? It was kind of crazy yesterday. I mean, Vince Russo and I had another conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
And I know how, I know, the past is the past, first and foremost. But, I mean, he just kind of said, you know what, just for nothing, bro, I just want to let you know that what you have and what you bring to the table in today's environment is unlike what anybody else has out there. You have more history inside of you than just about anybody alive. And all right, that's because I'm freaking old. I'm in just 62. I'm going to be 62 soon. Wow. So I was watching wrestling since I was 5 years old, and I kept everything related to wrestling that I've ever had. I mean, from my Freddie Blassie fangirl days to you know, to the 1996 when I left the business.
Wow. So what kind of old school merch do you have?
Say that again, Jimbo.
So what kind of
old school merch?
Yeah, or like, because in the picture you posted of Sean, everyone was like, "Look at all those LGNs in the background."
Yeah. No, I don't have any of that stuff because that stuff I sold at my conventions. That was a way for me to monetize, that time. No, I'm talking about the content, the videos, the films, the photographs, the actual matches. I really promoted some very unique matches around the world, from Singapore to South America.
Yeah.
You know, booking a show like featured in the main event, Psychosis and Sabu against Rey Mysterio Jr. and Conan and Caracas. I mean, that's a match that's talked about to this day that no one's ever seen. So I have it.
Wow,
there was a show I did in conjunction with AAA and ECW in Chicago that was Terry Funk and turning on Perro Aguayo, and we caused a riot. I mean, no one's ever seen this stuff. So
you need to get yourself a pivot share.
There's plenty of stuff I have that I think people would really dig seeing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you need to work something out with High Spots Network, or get yourself a pivot share and start posting this and make some money off of that.
Yeah, I have no clue even where to start, guys. I mean, this is just kind of like the last 3 weeks has been an eye opener for me, and I really don't know where to start. I really don't.
Well, I think you've really kind of already started in the right place, John. Honestly, man.
Yeah. Building a little bit of a fan base.
Yeah.
I mean, and just seeing where it goes, and the opportunity. Like my nephew, when he heard it, you're doing X-Pac's podcast, Uncle? He was like, that is so cool. And I'm like, yeah, and you know why I'm doing this too? Because of him. I mean, he just graduated college. He's a brilliant kid. He loves the business. I want to keep him away from the bad stuff of the business.
Yeah.
But if he wants to help me, I mean, with a podcast or getting a website started, or even, I think there's a book in it as well.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe he can be the ghostwriter for me, but he wants to be in the business. I want to find a way to get him started in his career. So maybe this is a way to do that, and for me to kind of tell my history, but him to get started in a career.
Hey,
something.
Hey, John. Man, looking at the pictures of you now, man, you look great. You look probably the best I've ever you look fantastic.
Sean,
man.
I when I was in the business, man, when I left the business, I was 388 pounds, man, and I couldn't even move. And I'm down to about 270. I mean, I'm still heavy,
incredible.
but I feel great.
Yeah.
I mean, when I left the business, I mean, the stress just kind of lifted from me. And it was such a dark time in my life, and the things that I've done after wrestling have been, really cool. I've been in the music business in Nashville for 20 years. I discovered, one of the major country stars in the business today, Kelsey Ballerini.
Very cool.
I worked for the record company. I was the vice president there, and I found her and brought her in and got her signed.
That's huge, John.
Yeah, Kelsey is a big star today, and what I do right now in Nashville is I do artist development. I work with artists that are emerging, and I raise money for them through their fan bases through a crowdfunding platform which I developed with a business partner, and then we open doors to this music industry for them.
Wow.
So I mean, that's kind of giving back in a lot of ways, and that's what I've been doing. In the last 20 years, I've been in Nashville, working in the record business, working in promotions, helping artists out, marketing artists, and I found my niche, man. I loved country music when I left wrestling, and I started as a radio salesperson on Long Island, went to New York City, and they get hired to open up an office for a TV network here in 2000, and I never looked back. I stayed here. I love it here.
Nice, man. John, one of the main reasons, besides just shining some light on you for all the people that tune into the show, was for me to just have you come on so I could tell you how grateful I am to you and how much I appreciate, that weekend. Like I said, it was only one weekend I was around you, and it was huge for me, and I'll never forget that, John. And I really can't wait to see you, man, down the road somewhere.
I look forward to that, and I think our paths will cross again. I am almost positive of that.
Hey, and John, let's give everyone, all your social media stuff so they can.
Basically, I just did this 3 weeks ago, and I was able to get my name. It's at John Arezzi at Twitter. At John Arezzi Twitter, and I started an Instagram account a few days ago. So that's where you can find me. There's no website up, but I'm posting every day. I'm putting some really cool shots up every day, and all I got to do is dip my hand into a bin of photos, and I come up with gold.
Hey,
so I'm like,
so John, here's the thing: somebody listening, or somebody we know, can definitely get you going in the right direction as far as websites, how to what to do with the treasure chest of stuff that you have. And getting it out there and doing it in the smartest way, man. Somebody out, we definitely have connections for that, and so do a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people will be dying to help you with it, John. And I'm gonna,
like I said, I appreciate the opportunity to come here, and like I said, I'm gonna just kind of do it smart. I think I wasn't the best businessman back in the '90s. I really promoted like a fan. Because I was a fan, and I'm still a fan. That's how I promoted it, and I didn't look at the dollars as much as pleasing the listeners that I was responsible for serving back in the day when I had Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and now I just want to do things in a little bit of smarter way if I can. And if there is a market for this stuff, I want to do it the right way, and always over deliver to anyone that's going to be associated with anything that I do.
That's right. Always give them more than they expected.
Yes.
Yep. That's exactly. That's a Pat Patterson philosophy. We'd always throw a little something in to make the people feel like they got something extra. But anyhow, John,
that's what keeps them coming back.
Yep. John, thank you so much, man. I'm so grateful for everything, and I'm grateful for your time today, man. Thank you so much. John Arezzi, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, before we continue, here's a question. How did you sleep last night? How did you ladies sleep last night?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, did you spend the night tossing and turning?
Yeah.
Sleep is important. The quality of your sleep affects the quality of your daily life, 1000%. If you're struggling to get a good night's sleep, you've got to try Purple Mattress. Purple mattresses will feel different than anything you've ever experienced because it uses a brand new material developed by an actual rocket scientist.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not like the memory foam you're used to. The Purple mattress material feels very unique because it's both firm and soft at the same time. So it gives you comfort and support. Plus, it's breathable, so it sleeps cool. It ends up giving you a zero-gravity-like feel, so it works for any sleeping position. Going through Purple gets you a 100-night risk-free trial. If you're not fully satisfied, you can return your mattress for a full refund. It's backed by a 10-year warranty, gets free shipping, free returns, free in-home setup, and removal of your old mattress. That's important because, if they don't do that, you could have an old-ass mattress just sitting around and, it might be there for a year.
Such a pain in the butt.
On your sidewalk and it looks terrible.
Yeah, it looks really bad. Yeah, isn't that brutal? Even out here, right? In some nice neighborhoods, you got people that move and they just throw stuff out front, and
oh my God,
it looks
so much furniture.
bad.
The dogs are peeing on it all.
Oh my God, so bad. You're going to love Purple. Right now, our listeners will get a free Purple pillow with the purchase of a mattress. That's on top of the great gifts they're offering site-wide. Just text X-Pac to 474747. The only way to get this free pillow is to text X-Pac to 474747. That's X-Pac, X-P-A-C, to 474747. Message and data rates may apply. Thanks again to our friends at Purple Mattresses. We're going to take a break right now. We're going to come back with Kane, a.k.a. Mayor Glenn Jacobs.
Welcome back to X-Pac 12360. Joining us now, a 3-time world champion and 12-time tag team champion with partners like our very own Sean Waltman and some others. He formed the legendary alliance Brothers of Destruction alongside The Undertaker and has performed at the grandest stage of them all at WrestleMania, set Royal Rumble records, and of course wreaked havoc as part of The Authority. He recently announced he's opening the Jacobs Pritchard Wrestling Academy. The residents of Knox County, Tennessee call him Mayor Glenn Jacobs, but you all know him as WWE superstar Kane.
All right, make some noise. Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming on, man. I'm honored to have you on.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, Mr. Mayor, is it okay if I call you Glenn for the sake of the interview?
Yeah, please.
Hey, I always ask people that's known for a long time, do you remember the first time you and I met?
Man, I don't know if I do or not, actually.
So, okay.
Refresh my memory. I remember watching you on TV.
Don't feel bad. It was at Dab's Business Park in Tampa, Florida, and you were at Malenko's. And
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember, like, I looked at you, and I'm like, oh, my God. This guy's going to be a big deal at some point. And, you were.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, that's something that we have in common is we both went through the Great Malenko's Professional Wrestling Academy. It was a great experience for me. Boris Malenko, Larry Simon, who's Dean Malenko's dad, Joe Malenko's dad, just a great guy. When I moved down there, I actually lived with him for like 6 months. And,
wow!
And he just opened his house up, and he's just wonderful people.
He lived. This is kind of getting a little inside baseball. That place he lived, that used to be Masami's house. Do you know that?
No, I didn't actually.
Yeah. And Masami, we were just talking about Masami earlier, because anyways, Masami was the son-in-law of Carl Gotch, and he was the referee of UWF in Japan, the submission style promotion over there, and it broke off. And Glenn, you, like a lot of people don't realize this about you, but you were trained in submission wrestling and actually went and worked in Japan in pro wrestling Fujiwara Gumi, right?
Sure did. That was the neat thing about Malenko's is that you had Dean and Larry and some other folks that taught professional wrestling, and then you had Carl Gotch lives in Tampa, and he's good friends with Larry Simon. So there was a strong, submission
Sundays
style there too, and that's what Jody did, Joe Malenko. And I remember being in the ring with Joe, and Joe's about 200 pounds, and I'm 300 pounds, and he just tossed me around like I'm a throwing dummy.
Yeah.
In fact, we got to the point where I learned how to take good wrestling takedowns because I would. As he would throw me, I would just go with it. I knew there's nothing I could do about
it. Hey, were you down there and training? Was Shamrock down there at the time?
No, I was there it would have been 92 or 93.
Yeah, 93.
Yeah. I was there. Gosh, I can't remember who all was there when I was there. But like I said, it was a really good time.
Hey, so when you left Tampa, did you go from there right to Knoxville?
No, I went to Puerto Rico.
Oh.
Actually, I went and worked for Carlos for about 9 months, and I also did intermittently. I was going to Japan before that. I would go to Japan once a month, and then I think I went back home for a little while, back to St. Louis, and just worked a little bit with some independents there, and then went back down to Tampa, and then ended up going and working for Carlos for about 9 months. Then I ended up going to work for Otto Vance in Germany for a month. Then after that's when I went to work for Cornette in Knoxville.
Hey, so how'd that happen? Like the Cornette thing, was that because they'd seen you in Puerto Rico, or? It
was Dutch Mantel.
Yeah.
Dutch has been one of those people that I really owe a lot to.
Brilliant.
Dutch and I met at an independent show someplace, in Illinois or Indiana. And he took my name and number and all that. And then he got the book in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And Dutch is tremendous. I mean, he's
a
understood
genius.
the psychology of that territory. I lived with Dutch and said he helped me out a lot. And towards the end of my run there, he got me hooked up with Cornette and basically got me a job in Smoky Mountain.
Yeah, and I remember, like, for people that aren't familiar with Smoky Mountain, you had this character. It had kind of a Jason look to it, but it was called the Unibomb. Unibomb?
Yeah. The name was Unibomb because Cornette just thought that was a cool name.
It was,
and basically it was somewhat. It looked like Lord Humongous a little bit from Memphis. It had a hockey mask, like you're saying, like sort of a Jason look. But then I would take the mask off to wrestle, and I talked a little bit. I had Al Snow as my tag team partner, so Al did most of the talking. But every once in a while, I'd say something, and that was a tremendous experience, man. I got to work with Ricky and Robert, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, Rock and Roll Express, and Tracy Smothers and Tony Anthony and Brad Armstrong, and just all these, just really, really. Cornette had some of the best talent, going, and I got to get out there and be part of all that. So that was really a tremendous learning experience for me.
Yeah, man, there was like Sullivan was there. I see, like, even like Paul Orndorff came through, right? Like, they weren't there when I was there, but even when I was there, man, Shawn Michaels came down, did a shot. Undertaker did a couple shots. Buddy Landell was there. Oh gosh, who all else? I mean, just Arn came over and worked a little bit. Not when I was there, but I know he did some shots. Lawler did some. Hey, how about this guy? A lot of people don't know who this is, but he was really good, and he and I actually lived together at Phyllis Lee's house in our start at Malenko's. Bobby Blaze. Yeah. Bobby Trivia was the last Smoky Mountain Wrestling champion.
Was it hard to
go ahead.
I was gonna say, was it hard to change your style? Because you're talking about wrestling in Mexico, Smoky Mountain, Japan. Those are all very different styles of wrestling, especially for some.
Well, they are, but it was Puerto Rico, not Mexico.
Puerto Rico.
So, that would have been a big adjustment. Now, Japan was completely different. I mean, Japan was submission style wrestling, so it was completely different. I think part of it, and I think Eddie Gilbert told me this, that the key to being successful was the ability, to modify and be able to do anything from, like very serious and technical wrestling to the comedy stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the great thing about, we all talk about the territories and, how they're all gone away now. And, I think that's one of the things that's really for people that are coming up into the business nowadays is you don't get like that huge variety that you used to get. Because everybody had a different style, and every territory had a little different style than the others. Now it's just the nature of the thing. You aren't exposed to that on a night after night basis like you were before. Yeah, I know. So like Memphis and Puerto Rico had similar styles. Like in that, like you would go out there and walk and talk a lot more, right? Like it wasn't okay. For instance, like if you were working in Memphis and you were on the Nashville show, like the heels would dress on the other side of the building. Right. Like you couldn't even talk to them unless you used like a walkie-talkie or something. You know. So the first show I ever did for Lawler, that's how it was. It was like in Kennett, Missouri, and I'd never even met Lawler or anything like that. And they just booked me on a show. And the thing was, though, I just started. I just broke in. Yeah. And Frank Morrell, who's the referee, comes over to me and he's like, well, this is what Jerry wants to do. And I didn't speak professional wrestling yet. I didn't even know what he was talking about. Right. I was like, okay. But yeah, and Memphis and Puerto Rico were both, a lot more brawling and that kind of stuff. Like you said, you would, you wouldn't even, they were different locker rooms and the whole deal. So, you had other places that were less so and probably more, probably more technically based. Yeah. Hey, Glenn, when you went to, when you came up and you started doing the Isaac Yankem thing for a minute, like, were you still doing Smoky Mountain at the same time? No. I signed with WWE about April of 1995, and I was put on a developmental contract, a version of it back then. Basically, that was just to time me up so I couldn't go to like WCW.
Sure.
You know, then I came up August '95, but I left Smoky Mountain Wrestling a week or two before that.
Right.
But I'd already, now the vignettes for the Isaac Yankem deal, you know, I was doing those. I was still working for Smoky Mountain.
Hey, so do you like how do you feel about all that? Like, cause you know, like a lot of people go, you know, the whole idea of the, you know, just the wrestling dentist thing. Like, I mean, it was,
you know, came up at a time where really the WWE was shifting philosophy, and we were going from a purely PG product and, you know, getting into much more edgy, and the Attitude Era was still a couple years away. But, you know, we still had, I was one of the last of kind of the over-the-top characters. You had, like, me, and then afterwards you had TJ Hopper. Was
Duke the Dumpster.
Tony Anthony's TJ. Duke the Dumpster's right before me. You know, just that sort of thing. And I caught the end of it. And I just, frankly, I never got into the character. I always make the pun that I couldn't sink my teeth into it. It just, you know, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't make it work. Plus, I mean, I was still pretty green at that point, and I was still trying to figure my way around through this whole thing. And, you know, here I was in WWE, and I think a lot of people end up in this situation. I mean, I'm in the ring with these guys that I've watched on TV.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh gosh, what am I supposed to do? And you can't have that attitude. I mean, you have to have the attitude of I belong here, and I didn't have it at that point. It was certainly not my favorite character, but now they've made a wrestling figure out of it, so I have to like it. And you know, they remind me of that now, but that's okay.
Hey, I think it's good to embrace the things that we did that maybe we look back on and chuckle about, or you know that, I mean, it wasn't the ideal, but we do the best we can with it, which is exactly what you did.
Yeah, and the thing was, if there hadn't been Isaac Yankem, there'd never been a Kane, probably.
Yeah.
So it's just all part of it, and you know, I have some people think it's the greatest thing ever too. You know, so it is just a matter of accepting it and just saying, yeah, for me, you know, I'm just, you know, I always preferred, like, the Road Warriors were my favorite tag team. And,
me too.
You know, I always preferred the rough and tough stuff as compared to the more entertaining stuff as well. So it was probably a personal preference on my part.
Yeah. So, hey, man, and I just got to gloss over this at least. I know it wasn't ideal either, but the fake Diesel thing, man.
Yeah, I actually like that more.
Yeah.
I thought I was going in the right direction.
Well, I thought you did a great job on it, dude. Like, it was honestly, like, if they were going to find anyone at all to do that, like, that would have been you.
Yeah, and again, it was one of those deals that the storyline really just didn't evolve like it had been originally conceived, and that happens.
Yeah,
you know, and
for sure.
Sometimes, of course, you know, the guys will get mad because, I was told this was going to happen, and it's an organic product, right? And things just happen and they evolve, and it just didn't, you know, it just didn't work the way, because, you know, conceptually it sounded pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it just didn't, you know, take off that way, and of course, you know, I don't think the audience really ever got behind it. But again, for me, it got me more experience, and I was much more. I was determined to make that succeed. And whereas with the Isaac Yankem character, a lot of the fact that it didn't, you know, succeed like I would have wanted it to, was due to me. You know, with the fake Diesel character was just the fact that, you know, it was probably just never meant to be.
Right.
But I felt that I'd done my part to make it successful as I could have made it.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And you know what? I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but, you know, Keven and Scott loved that whole thing because they got a huge raise because of it. You know about that?
No, I didn't get any of it.
No.
It would have been nice.
Well, hey, so here's the thing. When they,
I need to hit Keven up, man.
Well, when WCW offices heard when that Diesel and Razor were going to be on Raw, they thought that Keven and Scott said F it and just decided to go back there and F and so they just said, how much money do you want? Here's $500,000 more, or however much ridiculous raise it was. Like, that's a true story.
And we wonder why WCW went out of business.
Well, Well, you talk about being the fake Diesel. Luke Gallows was the fake Kane. How close was he to becoming the third brother of destruction?
Not very. That was another thing that, it sounded really good conceptually, and just didn't work. And Luke, of course, is a tremendous performer, and just a tremendous performer. And it's one of those things of like, man, because I was really hoping that would have worked for him. I mean, it wasn't like it was going to be a long-term deal anyway. It was just a storyline-driven character. But nevertheless, it would have been nice if that had turned out a little bit better, but it didn't. The outfit and the wig just didn't cut it. So it just got chopped right away.
So Glenn, can you talk about because I wasn't there yet, but I saw the debut of Kane in that cage. I can't remember what pay-per-view it was. Hell in a Cell. Yeah.
It's actually in your house. It was in your house.
Okay, but I just remember.
I was like, yeah.
I just I'm just wondering, when they run that by you, okay, we want you to do this character. It had to be just even running that by you. You had to have known this is the one, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you can have a chance to work right away with the Undertaker, and that he's going to make it successful as much as he possibly can. And the story behind it, from what I understand, is initially the Kane character was supposed to have been hot-shotted, and basically Mark needed an opponent and didn't have one for a pay-per-view. So, they came up with this idea really quick, and then Vince liked it so much that he decided, it was a great character, and he didn't want to just, do a one-shot deal. And you can see that. I mean, Paul Bearer was talking about Kane 4 months before he ever saw my debut. And I think if any character ever had the table set for them to be successful, it was Kane.
Yeah.
And then just everything and that went along with that. I was really pumped because I had a couple characters that hadn't worked as well as I would have wanted them to. And then to have the opportunity to do this, and then your first night out, you get to drop the Undertaker, which never happened back then. I mean, never, no one ever just dropped Taker like that. This was one of those deals of if this doesn't work, I really do need to consider a career change. But thankfully it did.
But see, Glenn, the thing is the execution was about as perfect as you could get. I mean, you nailed that character, Glenn, and I'm just wondering how long it took you to get in the groove and work all those things out. You know what I mean? To where it was. Yeah. It was just perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That one I felt very comfortable from the start. I mean, because I'd worked with Taker before, and of course, part of it, especially at the start, was mimicking some of the things that he did. And there was really, a template because of Taker, that I could follow. And then by this point too, I'd been around long enough. I mean, I've been in WWE for 2 years. I had been around long enough that I knew what it took to be successful. Yeah. I knew that, I couldn't just always listen to everybody else say, okay, yeah, that's whatever you want to do out there. I had to, get myself over. And I owed it to everybody in this case because so much had been invested into the Kane character. So really, I mean, I felt comfortable from the beginning. And, there certainly wasn't the learning curve involved that there was with the other characters.
Yeah.
Did Taker ever give you any sort of advice?
Oh yeah, he gave me lots of advice, especially after I'd screw something up. And I don't know if he called advice, but it was talking to every once in a while. Hey. No, he was always a huge advocate of mine from the very beginning of my run, before actually my run in WWE. In fact, our first match was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and he had come down to Knoxville, and it was him and me with Al Snow in my corner. And I think that Mark always saw, someone that he could go out and make money with, and wanted me to be successful. And, it's just from the very beginning. And, just helped me with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And even before the Kane character came along, like I said, helped me navigate. Because Sean, it can be a political world.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
Help me navigate through a lot of that too.
Yeah, because Glenn, like honestly, I've never met a more in the industry a more likable guy and a more pleasant guy to be around in the locker room, and and that could sometimes in the early days get misconstrued for other things.
Yeah. Larry Simon used to say, don't let people confuse kindness with weakness.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, it's a little different nowadays, but in that locker room, there was much more of folks who weren't necessarily concerned with the overall well-being of the company as, as themselves.
Yeah.
And, it could be a hard place to really get along in. But is what it is at this point too.
Yeah.
And, a lot of those guys are my friends too. So.
Sure. Hey, Glenn, when you first started getting that huge push as Kane, did you run into any guys that had to put you over, any animosity? Hey, what the hell?
Yeah. And again, especially because, let me prep. Yes, I did. But there was a guy called the Undertaker. Who would just be like, well, if you don't like it,
yes.
you can talk to Taker about it.
That's right.
That pretty much shut all that down pretty quickly.
Yeah. And then you had your first, and then they had enough faith in you to put WWE Championship on you, Glenn. That's a big deal, man.
Yeah, it was. And, the thing was that people will, folks sometimes give you a hard time. We only had it for a day. But here's the thing. This was very important time because, Austin was taking off.
Yep.
He was well into his climb. The Attitude Era was really just, there was all this stuff rumbling. And, winning the World Championship was awesome. But that was in Pittsburgh at King of the Ring. It happened the same night that Mick, of course, went off the cage and went through the cage. So I always give Mick a hard time that, so much time there. I won a World Championship. Everybody just remembers Mick that night.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, the next night in Cleveland, though, man, I'll never forget this. This is the most electric environment I've ever been in. It was completely sold out. And, all anybody wanted to see was Austin.
Yeah.
Austin get the championship back. And I really feel that, for what my little part in was that in all that was really a springboard, and, really helped elevate the entire product.
Yeah.
In fact, up until that point, that was the highest rated segment of Raw that we'd had. And, and that's when things really started shot. It wasn't me, of course. It was Austin and all that. But nevertheless, to play a part in that, was a really big deal.
No, yeah, it's a huge deal, man. And I'm gonna tell you, hey, Glenn, I was, I tell people this all the time whenever your name comes up, and people always they'll associate me with the Click and DX guys or Hunter or the Wolfpack, Scott and Kev. But honestly, my favorite partner ever was you. It was just such a unique dynamic. It was the opposite of your average bookend tag team,
Yeah.
and just the whole way it started, from the WrestleMania thing, everything.
Yeah, it was great. It helped me out tremendously. Because, up until that point, Kane had just been an emotionless monster.
Yeah.
And what that did for me, our tag team, was it really helped round out my character, because it showed that Kane has feelings and all of that stuff, which I'd never had before.
Right.
And humanized me enough you know, the people I think could relate much better.
Yeah.
Remember we did this deal where we were teasing a breakup, and it was at Kemper Arena there in Kansas City, and you got mad and walked out of the arena, and then they shot another pre-tape, you know, and they had like a close-up of my eye and has a tear coming out, you know.
Oh, damn.
And it was like, golly, right? Who would have thought?
Yeah.
But all that stuff, it really helped, you know, it really helped my character and my career.
And me too, man.
As well.
Me too, Glenn.
And just, you know, and all the stuff we got to do, man, it was a blast.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you said, a lot of times you have tag teams that are bookends, but having something that contrasted so much and was so unique, you know, and we could have great matches with anybody because, you know, just could. And we had, gosh, who all had, you know, the New Age Outlaws and Dlo and Mark Henry and, you know, just everybody.
We had a match
really
with
The Acolytes.
We had a match with Dlo and Mark Henry, and unfortunately, it was on the same show that Owen passed away, so it gets overlooked, you know. But it was so damn good, Glenn. Oh my God! And I just wanted to talk about like just the really cool way like we went into starting our tag team. We would have these tag matches, and then just out of nowhere, like at the end, like Glenn would just wig out and grab me and choke slam me. and then so like when we won the tag titles after WrestleMania, you know, at the end, you know, I blow my comeback, Glenn comes in, he makes this huge comeback, people are going ape shit. I Bronco Buster, I think it was Jeff or Owen or somebody. And then when I stagger out, Glenn grabs me by the throat again, and people think he's going to choke slam me. And he picks me up over his head, and he throws me on Owen for the 1, 2, 3, and the place goes nuts. Steve Austin said that was one of the greatest feel-good like finishes he'd ever seen at the time.
Yep. I remember another one, man, where we were working against Taker and Big Show, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And did a deal.
Hello?
And we did. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so we did a deal where Taker is trying to recruit me back.
Right.
And I forget how it happened, but basically he choke slammed you and he messed you up.
Yep.
And I didn't see that. But, you know, I'm facing the Titantron, and Taker's standing in front of me. And, you know, he's trying to convince me to come back with him. Meanwhile, on the Titantron, they show the replay of you getting blasted by him.
Yeah.
And then I like steamed for a second. Then I grabbed him and choke slammed him, and the place went just absolutely crazy.
Man.
Yeah, that was that was way cool. It was a great moment.
And Glenn, you know, when I actually turned heel on you, like that was some pretty cool stuff too. I think like it went, you know, like it drug out too long at the end, like, you know, because I really loved working with you. Like I wanted to like, anyways, I really love working with you as a heel. It was very challenging for a guy my size, like to work with, not just a guy your size, but a guy with your gimmick. And I thought we did it really well.
Right. And I remember Dutch telling me this way back in my days in Puerto Rico, you know, is you have to, when you have a character like I have and the guy my size, you know, you have to figure out creative ways
to stop
to
yourself.
Be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then too, the other thing is, you don't get sympathy like normally we think, you know, guys getting beat up and people, you know, feel bad for him. With me, it's just like, well, why doesn't Kane just get up and beat everybody?
Right.
You know, so it could be difficult, you know, but of course you always had some great ideas. And yes, I remember that you definitely wanted like a big, huge match to put an exclamation point on the whole deal. And we just never could really get it worked out.
Like some exploding, like fire exploding bomb type of thing, right? And it just never came to fruition. Yeah. But in my mind, like I had this image, and like, you know, that would have been your like burial of me. But anyways, never happened. A little bummed out.
Were there ever any talks about you guys having a singles match at WrestleMania? Because I know you guys had one at No Way Out, but it was so close. Was there ever any talks about a singles match between you guys?
Well, that was like the thing.
That was it.
Yeah. and it turned into a tag match, and it was kind of more of an afterthought. But
Were you guys bummed
well, that
that
was
didn't
also
happen?
hadn't I broken my hand or something at that point? I think that was WrestleMania 2000, correct?
Yeah.
Sean, yeah, and I think I broke my hand too, so I couldn't really, do a whole lot, so that didn't help matters. But yeah, we were supposed to have like the big blow off match at WrestleMania, and instead of just, we just never could get it worked out.
But people always, and even like after that, like when I was doing the 2002 NWO stuff, whenever you would get your hands on me, the people would go nuts, even like later on down the road. So, but I remember, like, Glenn, and I got to bring this up, man, because I felt so bad when I finally realized this was the deal. I apparently, I sent you to the hospital 3 nights in a row to get stitched up, and you never told me. I had to find out from Paul Bear. Do you remember that?
Well, yeah, it wasn't 3 nights in a row. It was once 2 consecutive weeks, but it was also just stuff that happened. It wasn't like you'd done anything on purpose or anything like that. In fact, one of them I did myself. But I'll never forget you were apologizing. I was like, dude, don't worry about it. It happens. I'm not hurt or anything.
You remember the one? Do you remember the one where I slammed the cage door on your head and it hit a gusher? And I mean, and that's when it dawned on me how hot you run at all times, because when the blood hit your suit, it immediately dried and caked up and started smoking. Started steaming. I was just like, oh my God.
That was not a special effect.
And that was my fault too, actually, because I didn't protect myself as well as I should have on that. But
come on, Glenn.
I'll never forget that either. That was visually, that was horrifying. So, but I remember Mick actually was there that night, and I'd had a really bad cut on my scalp, and remember Mick walking into the locker room, and remember Francois?
Yeah, Francois Petit.
Look at you. Yeah, Francois was looking at it, and Mick walks in, and Mick's like, "Oh my God, Glenn!" And as soon as Mick said that, I'm like, "Oh no, I'm done." Like if Mick Foley's saying, "Oh my God," about an injury, forget about it, right?
Yeah.
So, but luckily it wasn't. It wasn't that bad. But it was a nice cut.
Hey, Glenn. So when we go on talking about that 2002 NWO stuff, you tore your bicep then, and we did this thing in the back where we attacked you, and I took your mask off. You remember that?
Yes.
Were you not? Yeah. Well, you were shrugging or something with 405, which isn't really that much weight for you, wasn't it?
I was doing a lot more than that. I was doing 595.
Okay, I know, but even that really 595, shrugging, I picture you doing that. It's a weird thing where all of a sudden you blow a bicep.
Yeah, no. What had happened was I had an underhand grip on that side, and I think I'd actually I remember someone had me in an arm bar or something. And I remember tweaking it a little bit a month before that, and it was just one of those things. And I've been really fortunate in my career. I've only had a handful of injuries, and I had that one, but that happened at the gym. It didn't happen, in the ring.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I had to go down and see Dr. Andrews, of course, and I had to get it fixed. It was in an area on my arm that your arm can't function. I couldn't turn my wrist, But again, I mean, I've been so fortunate I had that. I broke my hand, and that's really been about it as far as injuries that put me out for any period of time.
Because it's not like you're pretty agile and big man the way you work. So what do you think the reasoning for you being fairly injury free? Just keeping flexible or what?
Yeah, that has something to do with also. I mean, because I am a big dude. It's not like some other guys that just have to go out there every night and, take all these crazy bumps. I never had to do that. I mean, you look at Mick now, and, night after night, Mick would go out and, do sentons onto the concrete and all that. And, his body's taking a toll because of that. And I was very fortunate I didn't have to do that. And then also, I mean, I tried to stay in as good a shape as I could, which can be challenging on the road, but nevertheless, I'd always get to the gym and, just try to take care of myself. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
You look as good now. Like, I think better than at some points earlier in your career. I still work out and stay in shape, and that's what everybody tells me. It's like, have you found the fountain of youth? I was like, I don't know, man, because I certainly don't feel like I did when I was 30.
Well, your current job is, shall we say, far less hazardous than your previous gig, of course.
In some ways, in some ways it's not. In some ways, it's much more dangerous, but nevertheless.
Have you had any trouble convincing the people of the town or anyone that you work with that someone who we've seen bleeding from the head from a cage in a ring can be an effective mayor?
No, because the thing is, I think that we've reached the point that folks understand what we do is entertainment, and we're really actors. And of course, for years and years and years, that within our business, that was completely off limits, and Vince realized that, we can do a lot more if we're, just to acknowledge that what we do is entertainment, and that there are people behind the actors, behind the characters. And, frankly, just like with so many other things, everybody's like, that's crazy to think that way, but he was right in the end. And you can just see that, in really the WWE superstars and the performers, their ability to, especially nowadays in the day, in social media, just your ability, to do things outside of WWE and outside of wrestling that you wouldn't have been able to do in the old days. Mm-hmm. So, you're always going to have people say whatever, and I find that those folks are completely ignorant about what they're talking about. Yeah. This has been a great business for me. I have been able, because of my time in WWE, I've been able to touch so many people around the world, touch their lives in a positive manner. And that's the most rewarding thing.
Absolutely.
When someone comes up and tells you that, thanks you for giving them years of enjoyment and entertainment, you can't put a price tag on that. So I think, I think that nowadays, all that stuff is really, you're always going to have people that say whatever, and who cares? Sure.
Hey,
most people are cool and accepting and realize that, we're just people, we're trying to make a living.
Hey, so Glenn, was there a situation locally that you were frustrated with that made you decide you wanted to run for mayor?
No, I'd always been interested in government. I never really wanted to run for office. But in the end, it's just, thinking maybe I could, hopefully I can have a positive impact on things. But there wasn't like a single trigger in my, for me, that was like, oh yeah, I need to do this. It was more just, I think it would be a good thing.
Did you experience any, dirty tricks, as far as like the politicians that you were going against?
Not so much. We had a really clean campaign. I was really proud of it. Not only on my side, but also my opponents. They ran a clean campaign. And I think nowadays too, people are tired of the dirty politics.
Man, I know I am.
That really turns folks off. And in fact, one of my opponents, he's on county commission, great guy. And it's funny because during the campaign, we would argue about stuff, and now, we see eye to eye on a lot of things, and he does a great job. I think really with the politics, again, people are just getting sick and tired of the constant negative campaigning. It's well, okay, so your opponent's terrible. What about you? You know, that's what I always say. You know, the campaign motto for a lot of candidates should just be, you know, I'm not as bad as the other guy, right? Instead of, you know, why should you vote for me? It's just always, why should you not vote for the other person? And I think people are tired of it.
Well, is mayor just the first stop in your political career? Are you going to run for governor or senator?
I have no idea. I'm just trying to survive and do a good job, and you know, we'll see. I really don't know. You know, I haven't thought that far, and I think really you do a disservice to folks when you think like that too. You shouldn't. You know, I have a problem when people say higher office or you know, whatever, because they're all important. Yeah. And, you know, you need to treat it like that. But when people get in just thinking, oh, gosh, you know, I'm going to run for this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, that's not what the whole thing is about. The whole thing is about conserving your constituents.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Hey, and your constituent, I mean, Knoxville, Tennessee is pretty diverse, way more diverse than somebody might think when they hear Tennessee.
Well, it is. Yeah, it is, man. We've in the county, there's 450,000 people, and we have the county's budget is $830 million. And, you know, we have everything here from downtown. We have a section of downtown called Market Square, which is one of the hippest places in the country. There's restaurants and, you know, theaters and just everything you'd possibly imagine. I live out in a section of the county, which is in the country. You know, we have everything in between. You know, when we look at ethnic diversity as well, you know, I have, you know, friends here that, you know, you wouldn't think that there'd be a large Asian population here, but, you know, I have friends, they're Vietnamese, Japanese, from Laos, you know, all that sort of thing. You know, Indian folks, everything. So yeah, it is a very diverse community.
Hey, let's talk about the wrestling school, Glenn.
Yeah, that community's about to get a brand new wrestling academy. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Really happy about this. You know, Dr. Tom Pritchard.
Yeah, he was on a couple years. He was on a couple weeks ago, right? About a month ago. Yeah.
And Tom was here in Knoxville, and Tom's one of the best trainers in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was with WWE for you know, quite a while as the head trainer at their developmental center. And, you know, has trained people like Kurt Angle and The Rock and all these other folks. And from, you know, looking at this as a business person, I was thinking it's just a shame that, you know, Tom is not training, because he's really good at it and he's really in demand. You know, he goes all over the world doing seminars and that sort of stuff. So really I was like, you know, just for me, again, as a business person, looking at the whole thing and thinking, okay, you know, what's the competition? And of course, you know, Lance Storm has a great school up in Calgary, and Booker has a great setup down in Houston. You know, and of course, you know, nothing can compare to the Performance Center in Orlando. You know, but really, I think you have to look at. People ask me, how do I get into WWE? Well, you got to go to the Performance Center at some point. You know. The question is, how do you get ready to go to the Performance Center? Yep. You know, and that's the first stop for a lot of people. And I thought that was a niche that we could fill. And geographically, you know, it's kind of lacking in our area. So I just thought it'd be you know, I thought it'd be something that would take off.
Has anyone at WWE, have they been supportive of you, or did anyone encourage you when this was just an idea?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I ran it by them, and you know, the thing about WWE is, you know, you hear a lot of the negative stuff, and I can tell you the negative stuff is often a result of disgruntled people who haven't gotten their way, you know, just running their mouth.
That's true.
Because most of the time when I've come up and said, hey, I need help with something, they'll bend over backwards to help me with it. And, you know, this has been the same. And, you know, especially Triple H understands that, you know, they need a pipeline and they need talent coming in. And Paul gets that, you know, I mean, he was the brains behind the Performance Center, which is just an unbelievable facility. You know, and I mean, he goes all around the world, helping other, in some cases, other promotions, you know, groom their talent. So I think that any time that he sees the opportunity, you know, to get to grow that talent pool of people that they could pull from, they're going to be supportive of it.
Nice.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about earlier, and I kind of wanted to ask you, was we were talking about your different phases in the company and different things that you went through. But one of the things I want to know is, what was your favorite evolution of Kane?
Oh, the first one.
Nice.
First one by far, you know, because it was new and it was different. It was exciting for me personally. And, you know, that was the time too, man. I mean, that was when everything was, you know, was just going. And, you know, forget about being the hottest thing in wrestling. We were the hottest thing in entertainment.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, yeah, it was much bigger than just professional wrestling. We were the hottest thing in the entertainment world. You know, when you can go around for 2 years or however long it was and sell every place out.
Like legit sellouts. Every single building.
Yeah, not paper. These were legit everywhere we went, you know. And
every
then,
house
you know,
show.
You just have, it was just amazing. And from a character standpoint too, you know, that's you know, that was just the best time, because you know how it goes as you evolve through your career. It's just like everything. I mean, like in Happy Days, they call it jumping the shark tank, right?
Jumping the shark, yeah.
You know, the original concept of the character just deviates, because it just always does, because you always have to do something new. And to me, that was just, you know, that was just the best time, because you had this character, everybody knew what it was all about. Yeah. And, you know, everything was fresh and good.
You know what? Something I want to add to this is that, man, no one has you spoke so much without ever speaking a word. The way you did the way you did everything, man. Like, and I just want to acknowledge that I mean, it was so well done, man.
Well, thank you, bro.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you guys where I got the head tilt, because I remember Bruce Pritchard telling me that, you know, I would just do that, tilt my head from side to side. And I remember Bruce Pritchard telling me that I told people more about what was going on than if I'd been able to talk.
Absolutely.
And I got that from my St. Bernard named Annie, actually. Yeah. Because when she was curious, she would tilt her head one way. When she was hungry, she would tilt her head the other way. That's where the whole thing came from, actually. So, you know, people, you know, they think there's this deep story behind it. I was like, nah, I was just watching my dog one day. And I was like, that's cool. Yeah. So, but hey, I got to get going, guys.
I was just about to say, man, we're coming up to end this. And I just want to thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you, man. Thank you for coming on.
Well, Sean, I appreciate it, and thank you guys. And man, I always had a great time working with you as well. And you were one of those guys that I'll tell you about Sean. He was always more worried about me than he was him. And I remember, you know, one time he was talking with Vince, and we were talking about something, and Sean was the guy going to bat for me. You know, and I think that says a lot about him. And, you know, it really impressed me.
I used to dip my hands in glass, tape them up, dip them in glass. They go in and go, Kane's not doing that. That's not what Kane does.
Yep.
So
yeah, you looked out for me, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you, man. I'm so grateful to you for everything, man. And Glenn Jacobs, Mayor Glenn Jacobs, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, guys.
Have an awesome rest of your day. Thank you for your time, Glenn.
Thanks, son. You take care, bud.
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas, my friend. Bye. All right.
Oh, that was so much fun to hear you guys reminiscing. Wow.
Oh, yeah, man. And I'm talking to ladies here, and I'm saying, man, sorry. Bro.
We're not offended.
Listen, bros.
Bro.
That was so great.
Yeah, just, and it was so just so.
It's just
can
easy
go on
for
and
you
on.
and
Yeah,
him.
so generous with his time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did. I used to get really pissed. He's not lying, man. I used to go in there. No, that's not what Kane does. Glenn's not doing that tonight. No. Yeah, he's right.
Can you think of one instance, like specifically?
No, I don't want to get into different ones, but there were certain little things that, you know. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
The kid was working for him.
This episode of X-Pac 12360 is brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. NHTSA is working hard to change habits and save lives during the holiday season. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. You could get in a crash, people could get hurt or killed. But let's take a moment to look at some surprising statistics. Almost 29 people in the United States die every day in alcohol-impaired vehicle crashes. That's one person every 50 minutes. Even though drunk driving fatalities have fallen by a third in the last 3 decades, drunk driving crashes still claim more than 10,000 lives each year. Many people are unaware that driving while high can be just as dangerous. In 2015, 42% of drivers killed in crashes tested positive for drugs. Not so harmless after all now, is it? And get this, from 2007 to 2015, marijuana use among drivers killed in crashes doubled. The truth is driving while high is deadly. So stop kidding yourself. If you're impaired from alcohol or drugs, don't get behind the wheel. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. Drive sober or get pulled over. So yeah, also, I guess that's it.
That's
right?
it. Stay tuned.
Just an action-packed show full of lots of juicy, good stuff.
Yeah, man. Stay tuned to X-Pac's Twitter at @TheRealXpac for any upcoming dates and what's going on.
Yeah. So I guess that's. Go ahead.
Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram @_Denise Salcedo.
Watch me on The Maury Show this Thursday.
Right.
It's not a Who's the Daddy situation. It's a festive holiday fails, holiday viral videos, things gone wrong. You guys are gonna love it. It's just like wrestling. Watch it on Maury.
Nice. Well, I guess that's about it, and we'll see you right here next week at X-Pac. We'll see you here next week on X-Pac 12360 right here from AfterBuzz TV Studios in North Hollywood, California.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Sean Waltman, producers Mark B. Donica, Jimbo Frank, and the entire X-Pac 12360 staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in. Like us on Facebook, rate and comment on iTunes and YouTube. Follow X-Pac on Twitter @TheRealXpac and email us at xpac12360show@gmail.com.